Hey folks, happy Wednesday. It's the Cam Rogers Show. I'm Cam Rogers. It's April 11th, 2018. Check me out on Twitter at Mr. Rogers99. We thank you for coming along for the ride. I've got you covered for the next hour. Plenty of juicy content coming your way on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Here's the rundown for today's program, episode 89 of the show. Of course, starting things off with the latest NFL headlines, centered on Josh Rosen, his recent interview with ESPN, a little news nugget on Belichick and Gronk going at it, and so much more. Of course, the latest on Odell Beckham Jr. too. And then an NBA MVP debate, LeBron or Harden. It's up to you guys. Hit me up in the comment section at the bottom of the hour. That's when we'll talk about LeBron versus Harden. And then a look ahead to the NBA playoff picture. We enter the final night of games. The regular season is coming to a close in the association. I'll take a look at the standings where we're at right now, the playoff picture, and then perhaps I'll look ahead to some of the scenarios here that could go down tonight depending on the seedings and the results in tonight's action. And then finally, some possible teams out there if Dez Bryant is cut by the Dallas Cowboys. I've got my list of top 5, so stay tuned for that. So without any further ado, let's get into the NFL headlines this morning. Josh Rosen wants to win 7 Super Bowls. If Tom Brady gets another, Rosen wants to one-up Brady. So ESPN came out with an exclusive interview with Rosen, long-form kind of deal, where Rosen talks about many different topics. But one of the more notable nuggets coming out of that interview was really the lofty expectations that Rosen has as an NFL quarterback. And here's what he recently said in that interview. We have a quote here that I think is just so Josh Rosen, it hurts. Quote, "A lot of guys are flashier, but I think I'm the most efficient, monotonously consistent quarterback in this draft." So he went on to say he wants to be the winningest quarterback in NFL history. So he is already giving himself a whole lot of pressure here to be a successful quarterback in the pro league. And he's utilizing this kind of cocky sort of persona on purpose. He says that, you know, in order to be successful in a professional league, you need to be cocky. I'm not so sure that's exactly true. I'm not really too knowledgeable of Tom Brady making those kind of statements, saying that, you know, he expects to be, you know, the most winningest quarterback in the NFL, at least coming out of college saying that. Ryan Leaf coming out of college is pretty cocky, and, well, we all know how that went down, so kind of using that logic there, not so sure it's probably the best path to go. Now, if you're an NFL GM, of course, it depends on your personal mindset, but I'm wondering if NFL GMs kind of like that sort of stuff from a quarterback. And if I'm a GM, I'm saying no. I kind of like the more Sam Darnold type of route where you let the play on the field kind of speak for itself more so than what you're saying in an interview and what's being said in a column. So with that, we ask the folks watching right now, will Josh Rosen win 7 Super Bowls? Give me a heart for yes, a like for no in the reaction poll. This is literally a reaction poll because we are being reactionary to this interview here that went out yesterday. So, you know, saying that he wants to one-up Tom Brady. He's assuming Brady is going to win 1 more Super Bowl. So with that, Rosen expects to win 7. That's lofty expectations. We'll see if you guys feel the same way as Josh does. Hit me up with a heart for yes and a like for no. But some interesting quotes here from Rosen, to say the least here. Now, I don't think it's the best path to kind of carve out yourself in terms of your persona, but Rosen is Rosen, and, well, I'm here behind a desk talking about Rosen. So I guess we can kind of tell who's more successful right now. But anyway, Rosen is a guy that I think has really good footwork, really great arm talent, and, you know, will be successful in the NFL. But being the most winning quarterback in the NFL, you know, it's just, you're just setting yourself up for too high of expectations. Don't think it's the best plan in the world. I even like Baker Mayfield a little more in terms of his version of cockiness because it's more displayed on the football field, not in an interview setting. So with that, Josh Rosen recently coming out and talking about his expectations in the NFL. We'll see where he gets drafted, by the way. All right, so Richie Incognito, I talked about him recently. Now, he is expecting to retire, citing the stress involved with his job. Said his liver and kidneys are shutting down. Was originally reported that he could return at the right price. Now, it's been a whirlwind of headlines here for Richie Incognito. First, he fired his agency after reconstructing his contract and his base salary lowered. Then he says he may retire and could come back at the right price. Now he's saying he's just straight up done because essentially his organs are starting to shut down and he can't handle the stress of the NFL anymore. Now, he said the kidneys and liver are shutting down after, visiting with a doctor here. He continued on to say that, the stress is weighing on him, but he wants to be a Hall of Famer. So now the Bills have given him a deadline of Sunday to decide if he wants to return. And he's certainly a critical piece of that Buffalo Bills front five there. If the Bills lose Incognito, that's Richie gone along with Eric Wood, who retired. Those are two really solid players. Wood, a former setter for the Buffalo Bills, shut it down due to a neck injury. And the Bills recently traded Cordy Glenn. So there's plenty of turnover there on that offensive line. If Richie goes, things get even worse for not just whoever's going to play quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, but LaShawn McCoy. And I think McCoy actually went out on Instagram or something and started calling out Richie to return, and he made a last-ditch effort to get him to come back to the Buffalo Bills. I know the Bills feel good about Deion Dawkins, though. He started in place of Glenn after Glenn got hurt last year. But aside from that, the holes may not be as wide for McCoy in 2018 as they were in 2017. Richie Incognito, we'll see if he officially retires, but it sounds like he is done. He has until Sunday to decide, so we'll see what happens there. All right, how about this? Colin Kaepernick, questioned yesterday in the collusion case against the National Football League. The NFL lawyers questioned him under oath and reportedly asked him about evidence he had for the collusion accusation, expectations in terms of salary and depth chart status with a new team, his health as we stand, a few different topics. Now, what the NFL owners are essentially doing is trying to gather all points that Kaepernick may use in his case and then hopefully call out his inconsistencies when all of this is brought before an arbitrator. Ultimately, it comes down to the following evidence: text messages, emails, testimony from owners, coaches, general managers, and league executives regarding whether and to what extent the coordination of any kind occurred. Now, just as a refresher, Colin Kaepernick is alleging that all 32 NFL owners colluded against him in disallowing him to be a member of the National Football League and to be a basically active quarterback on a roster. So far, Texans owner Bob McNair, Ravens GM Ozzie Newsome, and Ravens head coach John Harbaugh have been questioned in this case. Kaepernick will ultimately have to convince an arbitrator that this collusion went down, and I just think it's a very steep uphill climb here for Kaepernick to actually prove that. I'm not saying it happened or didn't. I'm saying it's going to be a really difficult task, and it looks like the NFL lawyers now are trying to do their best to really gather together what Kaepernick's argument is going to be. Now, I do want you guys weighing in on this. Do you think the NFL colluded against Colin Kaepernick in disallowing him to be a quarterback in the NFL? Hit me up in the comments section on Facebook Live as well as YouTube. Just looking at some comments. I got the broadcast on my laptop right now. We got Mariano chiming in. He's good enough to be in the NFL. I think the distraction and lawsuit is what will keep him out of the NFL. It's a very good point. Now, you could make the argument that, of course, he is worthy of being a quarterback in the NFL from an ability standpoint. But now with this collusion case here, it's almost like it's bad PR on his own part because now NFL owners won't be as apt to sign him because they feel accused of something maybe they didn't do. So, we got Roland and Adrian chiming in as well, both of them saying, yes, the NFL colluded against Colin Kaepernick. Keep hitting me up in the comments section. I'll be sure to chime in on what you guys say here throughout the broadcast. One more comment. John, he is finding out what happens when protests backfire. He dug his own grave but doesn't want to lie in it. All right. Well, the case goes on here for Colin Kaepernick, and we'll see what happens going forward. But I think eventually there's going to be some sort of market for this guy. What that market is, I don't know. Maybe an injury has to happen to a team during OTAs, mandatory minicamp, training camp, and the rest of the offseason workout. So maybe that's what it has to come down to. But again, so far, Texans owner Bob McNair, Ravens GM Ozzie Newsome, Ravens head coach John Harbaugh are the only three to be questioned at this juncture. And I will just say on a quick note for the Ravens questioning, that had to do with Robert Griffin III being signed. And essentially, the questioning kind of went in line with, well, why didn't you look into Kaepernick? You expressed interest in him before. Why didn't you sign him now? So that was kind of the reasoning behind that one. All right, so the debate goes on in terms of whether or not Colin Kaepernick will be back in the NFL, and this collusion case goes on. As somebody who would like to see him back in the National Football League, I am not a fan of what he is doing with this collusion case because, one, it's really hard to prove collusion, and two, I think it hurts his ultimate chances to get back into the National Football League. But hey, maybe he kind of pulls a rabbit out of the hat here, and he has the evidence, and he proves his case. We'll see what happens. Head coach Steve Wilks recently said that the Cardinals will ease Bradford into workouts. How about that second bullet on your screen? Wilks wants him to be ready to play, ready for this, 16-plus games. All right, so he is expecting Bradford, it seems, to be the starter, number one, to play a full season, number two, and to get to the playoffs, number three. So here's some Cam Rogers trivia for you guys. When was the last time, if at all, Sam Bradford played 16 games in a regular season? Hit me up in the comment section. Let me know. That's your homework for the program as we are live here on Facebook. So, yeah, they're going to ease Bradford into it. Makes sense. I mean, right now, workouts are voluntary. There's no reason really to rush Sam Bradford into the fray. And Steve Wilks kind of talked about how he knows what Bradford can do. There's enough tape on him to know what he can do as a quarterback, so no need to really rush him into any reps or anything like that. All right, so that's the deal with Sam Bradford. From one quarterback to another here. We're going to talk about the situation with Eli Manning. And he said he has not discussed the future with the Giants here. Now, Eli Manning took the most cookie-cutter approach to responding to a question about this, and here's what he said. This league, it's 1 year at a time. That's kind of how it goes. I need to go out there and play well this year, and that's all I'm looking forward to. Now, Manning carries a cap hit in the $20 million range for 2018 and 2019. The Giants would save a good chunk of change if they did cut Manning. After the 2018 season, next spring, he'd bring $17 million in cap savings. So you could look at that. Now, if the Giants draft a quarterback at number 2 overall, that tells me New York is looking for the post-Eli Manning era, and there's a possibility they cut him in 2019. If the Giants trade back from number 2 or draft Saquon at number 2, that tells me they're not quite ready to look at the post-Eli Manning era, or Davis Webb apparently is the chosen one to be the successor to Eli, and I'm not so sure that really is a safe bet there. So I think there's going to be a lot of subtle hints here in terms of what the Giants are looking at with Eli Manning, and it's going to come down at that number 2 overall pick. It'll tell us what they're thinking, and there are a couple of avenues that they could go, and I'm wondering here if the Giants are in love with Josh Rosen too, and if they are, they have an opportunity to kind of X out the opportunity for the Jets to get Josh Rosen. Apparently they're in love with Rosen at number 3 overall. But Eli Manning here, quiet on the future with New York, and I wouldn't expect anything less. He usually is pretty, calm and not too insane about, comments to the public or anything like that. So Eli Manning keeping it cool there in terms of his future with the Giants. He's going to be the starter in 2018. 2019 is when it gets pretty rickety, so we'll see what happens. Speaking of the Jets, finally they are hosting Sam Darnold. It took them this long. The last big-time quarterback to be hosted by the Jets. It was a really odd situation. I talked about it on my show, I think it was a couple of weeks ago, that The Jets have yet to even contact Sam Darnold about a workout. Finally, it's going to happen. The Jets, of course, selecting number 3 overall. And I think it's one of the more difficult predictions for me because it all depends on what happens at number 2. And let's say Darnold goes at number 1. Then you go to number 2. Will the Giants trade back with a desperate Bills team? And will that Bills team select Rosen? Will they select Allen or Mayfield? And, I talked about how the Giants, could they be in love with Josh Rosen? So a few interesting avenues here. For the Jets, I think the most likely scenario is they have Mayfield and Allen on the board when they select at number 3 overall. From what I can gather, I know they like Mayfield a lot, but have questions about his footwork. So I think that's the most likely scenario. But I think the dream scenario is something like the Browns grab Darnold, Bills trade up, snag Mayfield or Allen, and then the Jets can draft Josh Rosen at number 3. I think the Jets do really covet Rosen a lot. I know they like Mayfield. I just said that. Do have questions about his size and footwork. If they can get Rosen over Baker Mayfield, they're going to do it. So I think that's kind of where we're headed here. So the Jets kind of doing their due diligence with Darnold in the rare case that Darnold, just falls to number 3. I think he goes at number 1. I've been saying it all offseason long. I'm not going to change my opinions on that one. So let me know what you think the Jets should do at number 3. We've got Rosen, Darnold, Mayfield, Allen. Who will the Jets draft? Now, it's going to be a quarterback, so there's a reason why I have all quarterbacks as your options. Give me a like for Rosen, laughing face for Sam Darnold, a heart for Baker Mayfield, a wow face for Josh Allen, and I think Mel Kiper came out with a 4.0 mock draft recently. He's still sticking with Josh Allen to go number 1 overall to the Cleveland Browns, which would be absolutely amazing. And if you want to follow that kind of scenario, so it's Allen off the board at 1, then maybe Rosen off the board at 2, and the Jets kind of enter this scenario where they didn't really expect with Sam Darnold falling to them at number 3, and maybe they'll be happy about doing that private workout. By the way, Darnold is working out with the Giants this week as well, so he's in the neighborhood. It's convenient, if you will. So there you go. We'll see what happens as we get closer to the draft. All right, so some Aaron Donald news here. So he's about to get paid, okay? The best, perhaps, non-quarterback player in the NFL. Les Snead said that Donald is on the verge of becoming the richest defender in the NFL. This is no surprise at all. Les Snead telling Peter King this. Considering Ndamukong Suh is in town, I think there's kind of a bit of irony too, by the way. It's kind of interesting there. Donald is, of course, a force. The guy gets it done in so many phases of the game. Ranked first among defensive linemen according to Pro Football Focus a year ago. A 99.7 grade to his credit. Perhaps J.J. Watt's recent injuries have paved the way for Donald to get paid big time too, right? He's stealing more headlines as the best defender in the NFL, perhaps in part thanks to, for lack of a better phrase, J.J. Watt's injuries. I mean, it's just a fact that J.J. Watt hasn't been able to perform at a high level because of his health problems. Now, the Rams leadership informed NFL Network that the recent acquisitions won't disrupt the financial plannings for Aaron Donald. In fact, I was told that these financial plans were put in place well ahead of time. So there you go. Aaron Donald about to get paid big time, ladies and gentlemen. All right, next bit of news here, talking about the Dallas Cowboys. Well, we know one thing for sure. They were certainly in the market for wide receivers. They reportedly looked into Jeremy Maclin. So this coming from a report from ESPN, and it was also reported recently, as you may recall, that the Cowboys were looking into Sammy Watkins as well. Brought in Allen Hurns, Deontay Thompson officially to sign. Eagles also reportedly made some preliminary inquiries into Jeremy Maclin. Maclin, a Pro Bowler back in 2014. He's been a shell of himself really since 2015. Maclin set career lows with 40 catches, 440 yards, playing for my Baltimore Ravens a year ago. Never got on the same page with Joe Flacco. Also dealt with his fair share of injuries. And, it's not a surprise the Cowboys are looking at wide receivers or were looking at wideouts because they ranked 26th in the NFL in total passing yards with not a single receiver reaching 900 yards. Yes, that includes you, Des Bryant, who I'll talk about at the end of the program because I got my top 5 teams for Des Bryant if he is indeed cut. So stay tuned for that. Jeremy Maclin, though, very much still in the market for a new team. We'll see where he goes. All right, let's talk a little Khalil Mack. He was recently a no-show for the Oakland Raiders. And why is that? Well, he's currently in contract negotiations with Raiders leadership here. He expected an extension that was supposed to happen, quote, very quickly. Obviously, that is not the case. The Las Vegas Journal-Review said on Monday that initial talks were, quote, not even close. So not really good news there if you're a Raiders fan. Now, I think this is going to drag on a bit, but I think eventually there will be some sort of solution to all of this. Reportedly, Khalil Mack is looking at $65 million in guarantees. We'll see if that goes down. Mack, of course, entering the final year of his rookie contract, is due to make $13.8 million in 2018. My assumption is he will eventually get the money he's looking for, considering he's a 3-time Pro Bowler, 2-time first-team All-Pro selection, and the 2016 Defensive Player of the Year. All of that kind of adds up to a pretty good payday. I think he just needs to be a little patient. All right, so we'll see what happens there with Khalil Mack. All right, so what is the latest with Bill Belichick and Rob Gronkowski? It's at the top of my broadcast description. So you guys probably know what the deal is on the surface here, right? That Bill Belichick and Rob Gronkowski reportedly got into it with each other because Bill Belichick does not want Rob Gronkowski to be a client of the TB12, Center of Therapy or whatever it's called, and being a client of Alex Guerrero. Now, we know Belichick hates Guerrero, and we know Belichick is the ultimate micro-manager. Bill Belichick wants to be in control. I am on Team Gronk 100%. Boston Herald reported that Belichick ripped Gronk apart for being involved with this TB12, and look, that was just a matter of time for that report to come out. It's like, are any of us actually surprised about this? Rob Gronkowski, one of the more, shall we say, fun characters in the NFL, going out and trying out the TB12 and being a client of Alex Guerrero, and Bill Belichick, who wants everything in his sphere to be controlled, doesn't like that. Interesting, and I think it supports that Seth Wickersham ESPN report that came out not too long ago. Maybe it's not so fake news anymore, Patriots fans. So when 3 egos clash for so long, talking about Kraft, Brady, and Belichick, something will go awry. And I think Bill Belichick is at the center of the problem. Tom Brady is in this awkward position here where he wants to push forward his company and, his vision off the field. He also wants to be loyal to Bill Belichick as the head coach. So he's stuck in the middle here because, he wants to encourage his players to use TB12, but at the same time, he doesn't want the players to go against Bill Belichick per se. So it's a rough situation here for Tom. So all in all, I think this is a Bill Belichick problem. He whined about having to trade Jimmy G. He whined and yelled at Gronk for being a client of TB12. The New York Daily News, not too long ago, reported Bill was ready to seize the vacant head coaching position for the New York Giants. Not my words, the New York Daily News' words. Oh, and remember when Gronk was wishing Danny Amendola the best when he moved on to the Miami Dolphins? That was on an Instagram post. Remember that caption where he capitalized the words free and happy? What does that tell you guys? Is Rob Gronkowski feeling like he's chained to the Patriot way, if you will? Chained to what Bill Belichick wants? That is the problem. And that's why the Patriots are in trouble next season in hopes of making a Super Bowl run, because Bill Belichick is getting to the point where he's starting to rub players the wrong way. And if Tom Brady is part of that group, the Patriots are not making any noise next year. Talking about in the playoffs. They'll get to the playoffs, sure. But will they make noise there? I'm not so sure about it, because this stuff is real. We're not just talking about hearsay, anonymous reporting anymore. We have all of the data here, from the Wickersham to this Boston Herald report. The list goes on. Alex Guerrero sure has been a part of this as well. But Bill Belichick just can't let it go. Can't let it go. Because Tom Brady is kind of immersing himself into this quasi-GM role now because he is the face of the New England Patriots. Bill Belichick is not. Bill doesn't like that. He doesn't want his players going on over to an outside source for health reasons. And I do think the Patriots are in trouble from a mental standpoint unless the players can find a way to coexist with being Brady and Belichick loyalists at the same time. And that is a big if. Now, the only way that that can happen is if they all come together as one with one ultimate goal, which is to win. And that's what has kind of helped this Kraft, this Belichick, this Brady trifecta fiasco here, because all of them want to win, and that's why they haven't essentially gone at each other's throats yet. But there's going to be a time where perhaps Tom Brady, Bill Belichick, cracks, and it's going to be all over the news. Patriots are in trouble, guys, and I'm on Team Gronk on this one. Bill Belichick has to dial it back, or else he's going to start losing the locker room. All right, so that's the latest there with the New England Patriots. Finally, here in the NFL headlines, C.J. Anderson was almost traded to the Miami Dolphins. How about this little piece of news here? So the Dolphins and the Broncos reportedly verbally agreed to a trade, and Miami backed out last minute. Now, the deal was Ja'Wuan James, the tackle there for the Dolphins, over to the Denver Broncos, and the Dolphins would get C.J. Anderson. Adam Gase coached C.J. in Denver, so some familiarity there. And obviously, Ja'Wuan James would fill a big-time need for the Denver Broncos. Good young tackle, great pass protector when healthy, and Denver needs help on that offensive line. Instead, the Miami Dolphins went with Frank Gore. So I think they're all set there at running back. For now, I could see them going into the running back market there as we approach the draft, and maybe in the later rounds of the draft, they could look at some running backs there. But C.J. Anderson, how about that? Almost traded to the Miami Dolphins.